What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Demon Slayer Season 3. This is episode uh,
30.
3, I believe. Yeah, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah. Well, well, things certainly took a much drastic turn by the second half of this episode. Honestly, you never know based on the way these last two episodes have gone about with this deliberately slow tone, basically just showing us just some of the more somber moments with Tanjiro interacting with the different characters. But then things literally started picking up once I think two of the upper rank demons showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, for the majority of the episode, it kind of stuck with the comedic tone that we had throughout most of the last episode, and then it started to get serious and kind of, I guess you'd say, progress the plot a little bit.
Yeah. However, I mean, we do start off immediately after the last episode where Tanjiro finds like a 300-year-old katana, or what was it, the Nichiren sword, that used to be held by one of the demon slayers from the past. However, when Tanjiro takes a look at the sword, it's obviously it's rusted due to it being untreated for that long amount of time. Then all of a sudden, one of his personal swordsmiths, I think his name is Haganazuka, he's apparently he got incredibly swollen the last time we saw the guy in the last
I was wondering
season.
if that was even him.
I mean, he was wearing the same type of mask that he always wears, but it's all of a sudden he just pops out of nowhere, grabs a sword, tells Tanjiro that he'll take care of the sword, but they thought he was stealing the sword instead of him explaining that he's gonna actually try to reforge or I guess retreat the sword or something like that. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a little bit more comedic moments, and then we get a little bit more interaction between actually no, we see Tanjiro talking to Genya out of nowhere, and Genya, of course, obviously doesn't take a liking to Tanjiro due to the fact that he, for people that don't remember, he broke his arm during the events of the first season. Well, for good reason, because Genya ended up striking, I think, one of the women who was demanding a Nichiren sword at the time, and Tanjiro broke his arm. But then, Tanjiro just goes up to Genya, saying, just pretending none of that stuff really happened, and then tries to make friends with him, but then Genya just tosses him away.
Yeah, and then we also end up cutting to a scene where there's one of the swordsmiths gets murdered by the one of the other upper ranks, which is that demon in the pot. I forget what his name is.
Yeah,
he just gets eaten.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they have a good reason as to why they're invading the swordsmith village, is to destroy the village so the demon slayers won't have an advantage of having any more Nichiren swords to use up against the demons. And then shortly afterwards, we catch up to Tanjiro with Nezuko, and then all of a sudden, we see Tokito come in, asking Tanjiro if he knows where one of the swordsmiths is. I'm assuming it's one of the swordsmiths that was killed by this pot demon.
Most likely,
yeah, and of course, they have a little heart-to-heart chat about with Tanjiro explaining to Tokito that you should help people a little bit more often, then they'll eventually reward you later down on the line. But then all of a sudden, their chat gets interrupted all of a sudden by this, by one of the upper rank demons. I think his name is Hatengu. Of course, he's one of the more cowardly looking demons that we saw in the Infinity Castle in the first episode. They try striking him, but he manages to dodge it a couple times before Tokito manages to decapitate him. But then I come to realize that seems to be too easy, So thinking back, that Tanjiro thinks back as to what happened during the last season when it was facing against Gyutaro and Daki, and then he's proven right when Hatengu splits into two demons. With Tanjiro, I don't know. I guess you could correctly speculate that they would need to decapitate, I guess both bodies at the same time. But then it complicates even matters. Not to mention like how powerful these copies are, or whatever this demon is. Genya comes in. He uses, instead of using a Nichiren sword, he uses like a double barrel shotgun, which uses elements of the Nichiren sword, blasts both their heads off, and then decapitates the other ones. But then the demon copies himself again twice over, and then things get worse from there.
Yeah. One of them has some kind of a staff that seems to emit like an electric shock that ends up affecting Tanjiro. We should also mention too that Nezuko ends up transforming into, or at least starts to transform into her demon form, and also joins the fight. Tanjiro was about to go unconscious. That was when what was his name again? The guy with the shotgun intervenes, and
it was Genya.
Yeah, where he shoots both of them. But Tanjiro does end up getting carried off by one of them because he turns into some kind of I guess like a hybrid of a bird or something, and carries him away.
Yeah, and of course Tanjiro manages to free himself by slicing off his leg, and somehow survives he breaks his fall by somehow grabbing onto a branch and falling to the ground. But then all of a sudden the leg he caught off ends up, I guess, regenerating into another version of this demon, apparently about to shoot some kind of beam at him. But not before any of this happens. Genya also gets stabbed by one of the demons too.
Yeah. We also cut back to what was the other Hashira's name?
Tokido.
Tokido, yeah. He'd gotten blasted away earlier, and he's basically like trying to run back. But while he's like running back, he sees that child, or one of the children of the swordsmiths, is under attack by like a demon fish creature.
I'm pretty sure it's the pot demon again, because he has that thing has the that pot on top of him.
Yeah. How do you feel about the CG they used here though? Because like it's not bad, but it's noticeable, I guess. It's basically the fish creature is all CG.
I don't think it's that bad to a certain extent. I don't know. I mean, it barely looks noticeable when I looked at it. I mean, I
guess there's worse examples of it.
Yeah,
but it doesn't look too bad here.
Yeah. So the little kid, of course, it's Kosetsu. Initially, Tokito wanted to ignore the kid, and instead just wanted to go back and take care of what was it, Hatengu back in the village. But then he remembers the chat that he had with Tanjiro, saying that if you help other people, no matter who it is, then they'll end up helping you later down on the road. So he eventually helps out Kotetsu by freeing him from this demon. I'm pretty sure it's the pot demon. I don't know why it took the form. I don't know if it's like the same demon or maybe it's just one of its underlings. But yeah, so Tokito is apparently going to face off against this demon, and now Tanjiro's supposedly going to go up against one of the other upper class demons, Hatengu.
Yeah, that's pretty much like where the episode ends too. I thought it was a little bit of a better episode than the last one. The first half of it was okay, but it was a lot like the last one, where there was a lot more comedy, and there wasn't really like a lot in terms of any kind of progression in the plot or anything. But it seems like we're kind of getting somewhere at this point, I guess, but it's mostly just introducing, I guess, the villains of this particular arc, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention how quickly things escalated.
Yeah.
I honestly thought, it was gonna slowly build up into a confrontation between the demon slayers and the demons, but then they just suddenly just throw this, curveball out of nowhere, and then they just get us into this top tier battle already. I mean, if you remember, like in the last season, as soon as Tanjiro went up against Daki, that's pretty much the remainder of that season was just the Demon Slayers going up against Daki and Kyotaro for that remainder of that season.
Which kind of makes me wonder too if this is going to be the same with this season, where it's going to be a battle that lasts like the majority, if not the whole season, basically, like the Entertainment District arc.
Yeah, I mean, if you're considering like who they're facing up against in this season, yeah, I think they pretty much got their hands full on a much larger scale compared to Daki and Gyutaro.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so far with this arc, it's okay. But I kind of would like to, I don't know, it's there's not really much to really hook you so far. Like, it's just kind of been it's introduced the new villains that they're going to go up against, and we kind of get some teases as to, I guess, potentially as to Tanjiro's I guess maybe his family lineage, if anything, but we're not too sure about that. But that's about it. Like, everything else, it's just it's mostly just introducing these new villains that Tanjiro is going to go up against, as well as new Hashira. Kind of similar to the last season, which the Entertainment District, where we got introduced to a new villain, and we got introduced to another one of the Hashiras, and we've learned about him. And it's kind of similar with this arc, I guess, is that it's sort of doing the same thing. I guess I'd kind of like to see something a little bit different, or just maybe I don't know, introduce something interesting in terms of the character development with any of the characters, maybe Nezuko or Tanjiro in particular, but or even the I guess the Love Hashira or the Mist Hashira, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. So far it's okay, but I don't know.
I mean, I still have questions in regards to Nezuko, considering that now she's turned back into her. I would say I don't know what kind of form you would really call that. Maybe I would call it her version of the upper demon form.
Yeah. But
it seems like she has more self-control this time around compared to how she, first appeared in the last season.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, in the last season when she first activated it, it sort of took a lot for it to come out, I guess. But now she can draw it out, seems fairly easily, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, she immediately turned into that form as soon as the upper demons attacked them. So I'm curious.
The thing in the last season with that form is, like, I guess it doesn't take much for her to just completely lose control and for her demon side to take over. So I'm wondering if that's going to be that's going to be brought up again in this season, where she could potentially just lose control and go berserk.
It's a thing about, like, I just have this small gripe with Nezuko, considering, like, we see Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke. We see them mostly training, like, the entirety of the show, and they go through hell. As for Nezuko, we barely see her come out of that box, and most of the time she would immediately gain up new form, and in the last season she would lose her self-control. Now all of a sudden she seems to have, as of right now, she has some kind of self-control, but we don't see her, like, going through any sort of, like, training or any sort of, like, what do you call it? Like, any sort of, like, motions of, like, how she trains herself to, to control herself like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, she just seems to know how to do it. I mean, she doesn't really have to train like the rest of them. And I don't know, I guess you could say that's sort of a flaw with her character, is that she's sort of in the background most of the time, and then when she does come out, she is either it's for more so, I guess, comedic relief, or for her to help them out by, turning into her demon form. But she doesn't really, I don't know, she doesn't really have to train or learn how to control it like the rest of them would have to, I guess. I guess it's that kind of goes into sort of my gripes with her character is that she seems like she's mostly just there for the most part just to be cute and not much else. And she doesn't really have so far I would say she doesn't really have any sort of character development per se. She's just sort of there to for the most part, like I said, she could be comedic relief or just to help out in some way, and then she goes back into her box until I guess they need her again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna tear her down. Like, I mean, she is still a popular character within the Demon Slayer fan base, but it's just like I said, it's just her being able to attain these forms easily without any sort of training. Not to mention the fact that throughout the entirety of the show, like she never talks. It's it's also my other gripe. It's like she never has a chance to really communicate with her brother, in any form of fashion.
It would be interesting.
I'm not counting it.
Well, it would be interesting if they implemented some way for her to communicate without using words. Because I mean, obviously she can make noises and everything, but I don't know, maybe like write down what she wants to say or find some other way to communicate. I guess it would be kind of interesting, but they never really go into that. Tanjiro just seems to, I mean, I guess inherently just understand what she's trying to say, which is kind of adds to the comedic relief element of her character. That Tanjiro just understands everything that she's saying, even though she, obviously she's not speaking.
Yeah, it's. I mean, hopefully, we'll get to see. I don't know. I'm just hoping, something will come up with, with her character a little bit. Maybe, form some kind of communication between her and the other characters, or just at least give her a little bit more development, or have her be in the forefront a little bit more often than she used to. Because it's just her being behind the scenes, like, gets a little bit annoying at times. Like I said, just she's mostly inside Tanjiro's box, like for the majority of the show, until she comes out when things get hectic.
Yeah. I don't really have too much else to say about this episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
I mean, it is one of the better episodes. I did enjoy it. Obviously, like, things have obviously picked up out of nowhere. And I'm just curious if this whole battle between like Tanjiro against against these demons are gonna last pretty much throughout the remainder of the season now, because that's exactly what happened when Tanjiro and the others were facing off against Daki and Gyutaro at the entertainment district.
Yeah, I do hope it's not going to be sort of like a repeat of season 2, because that was all season 2 really was just pretty much just a long drawn out fight. And I kind of hope we get a little bit more from season 3, I guess is what I'm trying to say, than it just being like the whole season being just a fight pretty much. But I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, guys, that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.